We do want to welcome everyone to our program tonight. It's a very special evening. Um, we have a storyteller we've been looking forward to having come for quite a while. We've got very good reports about her telling. She's been telling for many years, and you'll hear more about her from Eva in a few minutes. Eva's going to introduce our teller, and Anna's going to read our proclamation. But before that, I want to share just quickly what this is all about. So give me a second to share my screen. And there it goes. Tellabration. What is Tellabration? Well, if you look it up in the dictionary, you probably won't find the word, but it's a trademarked name for an evening that started out in 1988 in Connecticut by a storyteller, J.G. Pinkerton. And for the first Tellabration was in 6 towns in Connecticut. He was part of the Connecticut Guild there and also a member of the NSN board. But soon it spread to Texas and Missouri, and then it kept growing to become a national and worldwide event held every year in November by the National Storytelling Network. And usually it's programs put on by various organizations and guilds. But since we've gone online, a lot of people are doing Zoom programs as well. If you go to the NSN website and look at their events on Tellabration, they have a list of a bunch of them. Quite a few have already taken place. A few of them are still coming. But that's what Tellabration is all about. And let me shift that for a second. So I do want to welcome everybody here tonight. I would ask you to mute yourselves so that any background sounds won't be disturbing. And as I said, we're going to start with Ann Brendler, who is the president of the Seattle Storytellers Guild this year. She's quite a storyteller. She served as our treasurer for a number of years, and we're looking forward to having her introduce our program tonight.
Thank you, Barry. In the name of storytelling, it is hereby proclaimed on this, the 21st day of November, 2025, that this event is an official part of Tellabration, the multinational event when stories are shared all month across the world, as well as across this nation. From Niagara to Natchez, from Peoria to Phoenix, from Boston to Okeechobee, from Minneapolis to San Antonio, from Savannah to Sacramento, from Northampton to Seattle. In many places in between and online, audiences are gathering to share the joy and knowledge tellers bring to draw together in peace, understanding, friendship, and community. Welcome all. Let the stories begin.
Thank you, Anne. That was wonderful.
Eva here.
And now I would like to start with
a second, Eva. Let me spotlight you.
Oh, you're spotlighting me. All right.
I gotta find you first.
Okay.
Oh, I know what I need to do. I need to go to gallery, and I got it made. Okay, here we go.
Thank you, Barry. I'll start with a land acknowledgement. The Seattle Storytellers Guild respects, honors, and gives thanks to the many tribes of indigenous peoples in this country. We especially recognize and honor the Northwest groups whose land we occupy, some whose name I cannot pronounce, and some names we're not familiar with today because they have been extinguished. But we know and honor the Puyallup, the Cowlitz, the Clallam, the Muckleshoot, the Wishram, the Suquamish, and the Duwamish. Thank you, and all tribes, for caring for the land. And thank you for fighting today to continue to protect it. And now, for the storyteller I have been waiting for a very long time. I got a little bit anxious about getting Rona here for us. And so she has actually been waiting an entire year.
More than that, actually.
More than that. Rona Leventhal is a skilled storyteller, actor, story coach, and workshop leader. She has been cooking up stories for more than 35 years. She takes stories and adds the perfect seasonings and artfully nourishes her audiences with stories that connect to the trials and emotions of the characters. She has performed in educational institutions, international venues, festivals, at the National Yiddish Book Center, and at the National Storytelling Network conferences. For more about Rona, her CDs, her books, check out her website. For now, let's see what Rona has cooked up for us tonight. Rona, it's all yours.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm just going to hide myself so I can see you and not me. Oh, no, that didn't work. I was afraid that might happen.
Go up to view at the top and
Yeah,
the gallery.
it worked earlier when I tested it. Hide self view. That's because I'm spotlit, I think.
Rona, if you choose gallery first, then you should be able, after
You
choosing
should still
gallery.
be able to go to the gallery view, though.
Ah, there you go. Okay, thank you. Perfect. Okay, glasses can come off. Hello, everybody. Thank you, Eva. Thank you, Barry. I want to give Barry a shout out because he's been fantastic about getting me set up here. And Eva, thank you so much for the invite. I'm really excited to be here. I have so many stories I want to share with you, but I only have an hour. So we're going to get started. So I'm going to start with this short-ish story. Once in India, there lived 4 wise people. The first wise person spent all of his time reading. He read about very important things such as biology and animal husbandry and astronomy. The second wise person spent all of his time, guess what? Reading. He too read about very important things such as education and psychology and astrology. The third wise person spent all of his time, you guessed it, reading. He too read about very important things such as chemistry and physics and economics. And the fourth wise person, she spent all of her time, you guessed it, reading. Now, I should say that's not completely true. She spent half of her time reading about very important things, but the other half of her time she spent out amongst the people. She would go up to the farmer that grew crops and she'd say, "How is it that you can grow your crops without any pesticides when others have failed to do so?" She went to the farmer that grew cattle for meat and she'd say, "How is it that your meat is juicier and more tasty than any other of the farmers around here?" Because he knew the secrets of animal husbandry. And she'd go to the person who helped the young people in the town, the mentor that everyone went to, and she'd say, "How is it that young people flock to you when they turn away other people?" Because she knew the secrets of psychology. Now, this went on for many years, where let's try that again. The first 3 wise people spent all of their time reading, and the fourth spent half of her time reading and the other half amongst the people. And after many years of this, the first 3 wise people, they decided that it was time to finally test their knowledge, to prove to the world once and for all that they were the wisest of all. And because they were compassionate people. They invited the fourth wise person along. And so they gathered all their books and their tools and their chemicals, and they set off from village to village, asking where they might be able to find a test that would prove that they are the wisest of all. And they finally found it. And they followed the instructions. They followed a pathway that they were told to go down, looking for a tree, because they were told that underneath that tree would be their test. But all they saw was barren land, bushes, and low shrubs, no trees anywhere. But they followed that path, and they kept following and following it until finally they came to a single tree. And sure enough, underneath that tree was their test. It was a pile of bones. And the first wise person said, "Well, this will be easy. This will certainly prove that we are the wisest of all. I am going to put together a skeleton of the tiger that once lived from these bones." And so he got his books and his tools and his chemicals out, and he started to put together the skeleton of that tiger from the very tip of the nose to the very tip of the tail. Now, certainly no one will be able to deny that we are the wisest of all. Is that not true, brother? Second wise person stepped forward. Yes, you have done a fine job indeed, my friend. But I am going to do one better than that. I am going to make a complete replica of the tiger that once lived. And so he got out his books and his tools and his chemicals, and he started to layer on tendons and ligaments and muscles. He layered on eyes and whiskers and fur. He layered on everything that would make a tiger whole, from the very tip of the nose to the very tip of the tail, until there was a perfect replica of a tiger in front of them. Now, certainly, people will not be able to deny that we are the wisest of all. Is that not true, brother? The third wise person stepped forward. Yes, you two have done a fine job indeed, but I am going to do one better. I am going to bring this tiger back to life. And the fourth wise person said, I don't think that's such a good idea, bringing a tiger to life who's standing right in front of us. Nonsense. It'll be a great scientific and technological discovery. But we must work quickly before the sun goes down and it is getting low in the sky. And so he got out his books and his tools and his chemicals. In the meantime, the fourth wise person, she climbed the tree. So the third wise person started breathing the breath of life into that tiger. And soon that tiger started to twitch its whiskers. Its tail started to sway back and forth. And its head started to move back and forth. And its whole body started to sway until, in a great flurry of dust, the tiger ate up all three wise people. And the fourth wise person, sitting up in the tree, she waited until that tiger licked its paws after a fine meal and wandered off into the barren landscape. And it was only then that she climbed down the tree, and she took back home with her the greatest wisdom of all. And that, my friends, is the wisdom of common sense. Hey, Bruce. Good to see you. Can you guys hear me okay? Yes? Okay, excellent.
Yes, we hear you just fine. Thank you.
Great.
That was wonderful.
So that story actually is in a book I co-edited many years ago called Spinning Tales, Weaving Hope. Gail Herman contributed that story, but it's a good story for our times. So this next story that I'm going to tell you, I will share a little bit more about the origins of this story at the other end of it. But I will just preface this story by saying that the kernel of it comes from the Jewish tradition. from the Talmud, which is a book of Jewish laws and ethics. And so that kernel of this story is from that. Honi the rainmaker, Honi the rainmaker, make me some rain to water these trees we planted today. Make me some rain to water these trees I planted today. Honi was walking down the road, the sun on his back, the dirt underneath his feet, and on either side of him were fields. Fields of wheat, fields of barley, fields of corn, every now and then some houses or barns. And as he was walking along the road, he came to a meadow, a clearing. And he saw an old man in that clearing, his back hunched over with age, his fingers gnarled like the apple tree he was about to plant, like the branches of that apple tree. He had a shovel in his hand and he was digging a hole, and Honi called out to him, "Old man, don't waste your time. You're being foolish. You'll never be able to live long enough to enjoy the fruits of that tree." "I'm not planting it for myself. I'm planting it for my children and their children." Honi continued to walk down the road, the sun beating down on him, and he found a tree where the branches went down to the ground, creating a canopy of shade, and he went underneath that canopy of branches. He laid himself down, and he fell asleep. And Honi had a dream. He dreamt that he was in a city that he had not seen before in his life. It was completely unfamiliar to him, not the faces of the people, not the buildings, not the streets, but he could tell that there was a buzz in the air. Something was going on, some sort of excitement. "Good woman, could you tell me what's going on?" "Don't you know? The king is going to announce today how he is going to choose a husband for his daughter, Yael, and the next ruler who will rule after him, right over there on that stage." Well, Honi elbowed his way up to the front of the stage. There was a curtain in the back, and soon it parted, and the guards came out, followed by the king, Yael, his daughter, and her mentor, the rabbi. And the king stepped forward. "My good people, it is time for me to choose who will lead this great land after I am gone, and to find a husband for my daughter Yael. Now I have sent out a proclamation to all the lands that whoever can best answer a question, a riddle, if you will be the person that proves that he is the wisest of all, who has the most wisdom to rule this land and all of the great people in it. The question is this: what is it that might bring prosperity and security, health and beauty, joy and peace, and might last forever?" Now, anyone can answer this question, but it must be answered in the form of a gift. Now, I've instructed my guards to have tables just inside the palace gates, and anyone who wishes can bring a gift that might answer that question. And I will be back in 3 weeks' time to tell you who will be the next ruler of this land. And with that, the king turned and disappeared into the curtain, followed by Yael and the rabbi and the guards. Well, Honi couldn't have been less intrigued if he had heard the trees talking. He loved riddles. And so the next day he went to the palace, not to bring a gift, but to talk his way into being a servant to the king. And so he did. Now, the next day, those gifts, they piled up on top of those tables, and the guards took them away, and they piled up again day after day like this. And the king, he had his work set out for him. He had to go through all of those boxes of gifts, and they were beautiful gifts. There were silver bowls with beautiful inscriptions on them. There was the finest of cloths of silk and fine cotton. There were his and her bathrobes and jewelry. Lots of jewelry. Well, 3 weeks went by faster than you could bake matzah. And he had selected 3 of those gifts that he thought might answer that question. And so he gathered all of the people that he wanted in the great hall of the palace. Special guests, guards, servants, including Honi himself, of course his wife, the queen, Yael, his daughter, and the rabbi, her mentor. The king stood up. Yael, my daughter, I have done my part. I have done my work. It is time for you, my daughter, to decide which of these 3 gifts that I have selected best answers the question. What is it that might bring prosperity and security, health and beauty, joy and peace, and might last forever? The king sat down. Yael stood up. She went to the table where those 3 gifts were. They were underneath boxes. There was 1 large box, 1 medium box, and 1 small box. She lifted up the box to the largest of them, and underneath it, sitting on a pedestal covered by a cloth of red silk, was the most magnificent sword you had ever seen in your life. The handle was gold gilded. The sword itself, the blade, started thin and flared out at the end. It was so sharp that if you had sliced the air with it, it would have screamed, and it was so bright that everyone had to shield their eyes from it. Yael lifted it up and felt the weight of its artistry. And she put it back down on the pedestal. She looked at the rabbi. Now, the rabbi had been with Yael since she was born. And the rabbi, over the years, had told Yael many stories. But now, it was time for Yael to tell the stories. And so the words of the rabbi poured into her. Mother, father, let me tell you a story. Once there was a king who loved his weaponry so much that every day he would walk through the village to greet his people, and around his waist would be a belt, and hanging from that belt was all sorts of weaponry, knives, daggers, swords of all manners. And his guards, too, had a similar belt, and they would walk through the village streets, clinking and clanking, and to greet their people. And the people would come out to greet their king with oohs and ahs, and they were in awe of their king, and they felt safe. But after many years, one person in the village, they thought to themselves, what if someday I anger or insult the king? Then those same weapons might be used against me. And so he scrimped and saved to buy even 1 knife that he wore outside his jacket. But when his neighbors saw that, they started to feel unsafe. And so they too scrimped and saved until they could buy 1 dagger, 1 knife, 1 sword. And so it spread throughout the community. And soon it was not the king who ruled, but fear. Yael went to the second box, the medium one. She lifted it up, and underneath it, on a platform covered with black velvet, was a magnificent crown. It was a gold crown, and it had diamonds all around the edge of it, with a big diamond in the middle, and she lifted it up and she put it on her head, and there was a gasp in the air. She took it off. She looked at the rabbi, and the words of the rabbi poured into her. Mother, father, let me tell you a story. Once there was a king who loved his jewels so much that every day he would walk amongst his people to greet all the people in the villages. And he loved his jewelry so much that he had every single finger with a ring. He had bracelets, he had anklets, he had necklaces, and of course a crown that only a king could wear. But he loved his jewelry so much that he wanted to be surrounded by it, and so his guards each had at least one piece of jewelry, a ring, a necklace, something. And they would walk through the village, and they would greet the people, and the people would come out to greet their king with oohs and ahs, and they were proud of their king. But those guards, they lived out in the village. And some of those people that they lived next to, some of them felt jealous to live next to such wealth, and others felt unworthy living next to someone with such wealth. And so one person, they decided to scrimp and save, sometimes missing meals, so they could buy one small ring for themselves. But when their neighbors saw that, they too felt unworthy. They too scrimped and saved, and so it spread amongst the community, and soon it was not the king who ruled, but jealousy. She went over to the third box, the smallest one, and she lifted up the cover, and there was another box. And she lifted that box, and there was a third box, and when she lifted that third box up, she found a very simple bowl. And in that bowl were some seeds. It was filled with seeds. And she took those seeds in her hand, and she let the seeds fall back down in the bowl like a waterfall. She lifted them again and let them run through her fingers back down into the bowl. Mother, father, let me tell you a story. Once there was a king that loved the earth so much that when his daughter was born, he didn't just plant one tree in her honor, he planted a whole orchard. And the king would walk through the streets of his village every day to greet his people, and he would pass out cuttings from the royal garden and seeds, and people would gladly take those seeds and they'd plant them. And in their leisure time, they'd tend to their gardens, and one garden spread unto the next, and there was plenty. And if anyone needed anything, and all they had to do was ask, because there was plenty. And on Sundays, the king invited people into the orchard that he had planted for his daughter to picnic and to take of the fruit of those trees. And the people were content. They were content because there was beauty all around. They were content because they were healthy, because they had good food. And when you are content, there is joy. And when there is joy and contentment and plenty, there can be peace. Where there is peace, there can be security and prosperity. This, Father, this gift is the one that answers your question. For it is said in the Torah that a king should not have too much gold and silver. And it is said that a king who cannot feed his people is of no good. But a king who can feed his people is worth much to the people. This is the one that answers your gift, Father. The gift that answers your question, Father. Yael sat down. The king stood up. Yael, my daughter, you have proven here today to be a sage young woman. And I cannot imagine any man, prince or pauper, who can show the wisdom that you have shown here today. And so, Yael, it is you that will be the ruler to rule this land after me. And your husband, they will be your companion. You can choose whichever you like. And Yael stood up again. The three men that had brought those three gifts were in the room, and she looked at them. Please, whoever it was who brought these seeds as a gift, please come and stand beside me. A man stood up. He had simple clothes on and a field hat. He was a farmer. And he came and he stood beside Yael. And Honi woke up. He came out from underneath a canopy of those branches, and he started walking through a misty air down the road from which he had come, looking for the meadow where he had seen the old man planting that tree. But when he got to the meadow, there wasn't a sapling there. There was a full-grown tree, and there was a young man and his children climbing it and picking the fruit. "Young man, could you tell me where to find the old man who planted this tree?" "I can tell you who he was. He was my grandfather. He's long passed, of course. But he planted this tree for my father and for me. Look, over there. Those are the ones I planted for my children and their children." It seems that Honi had slept for 70 years. "My friend, why don't you come and join us for dinner tonight? There's a whole garden waiting to be shared." Yes, I would like to do that very much. But please, first, if you can do me a favor, I'd like to borrow a shovel. I want to plant a tree in honor of your grandfather. Honi the rainmaker, Honi the rainmaker, make me some rain to water these trees I've planted today. Make me some rain to water these trees I've planted today.
Wonderful, wonderful. So we won't be interrupting you as you tell. We'll just talk at the end if that
Great.
works for you.
So that story, Honi is sort of like a folk character of sorts. He is said to be that when there is drought, he's also called the circle maker. He makes a circle, and he can make it rain. So that's the character. The story, as I said, is a Talmudic story. And the seed of the story, the beginning and the end of the story that you heard, is the story. And what the original part of it that I wrote is the whole dream sequence, the story within a story within a story. So that is the background to that story. Now, I don't get to tell that story very often, so I was very glad to have an opportunity to tell it tonight. Okay, we're going to switch things up a little bit. This next story comes from Ukraine. I first heard it from Sherry Norfolk, and this is my version of it. It all happened very simply, very naturally, really. You know what it's like. You sitting in a cafe or a pub and you start up a conversation with somebody and somebody else joins in. And before you know it, you realize that you're very fond of each other. And so it was with these three men. One a woodcarver, one a tailor, and the third a teacher and a storyteller. And because they were all travelers going from village to village selling their wares and their services, they decided to travel together for a little bit to further enjoy each other's company. Or so I'm told. I wasn't there. Not yet, anyway. And so they would travel by the day, and at night they would find a place to put out their bedroll. But one night they heard wolves out in the distance, and they decided, very smartly if you ask me, that they would build a fire and take shifts throughout the night, just in case. And the last of the three of them to have his time by the fire was the woodcarver. And as he was sitting there by the light of the fire, he realized that there were several logs, whole tree trunks, in fact, that were just sitting there. And so to pass the time, he took out his wood-carving tools and he started to carve. And by the time the sun had peeked his nose over the horizon and the two other men had awoken, he had carved a full-size statue of a woman. And that is how I came to be in the world. Now, the other two men were duly impressed with his work. The tailor said, My friend, your mastery is on display here. That is magnificent. I mean, look at it, the design, the form, the lines. Now I am going to make her a dress fit for a queen, and in doing so, I am going to make her beautiful. As if I wasn't beautiful already. Well, he started to measure and pin and measure and pin and measure and pin. You might say that I was the original mannequin. And he made me the most spectacular dress made of fantastic material. Now, it seems like he had some knowledge of, shall we say, painting faces. And so he dug up some roots and he crushed them up and he put some red on my cheeks. And then he took some berries and he smushed them and he made some lines on my eyelids and underneath my eyes to accentuate them. It felt kind of weird, if you ask me. And when he was done, the teacher looked at the statue, at me. Well, I have to say that the skill of the two of you is just amazing. I mean, look at this dress. Look at the form of this. It is just fantastic. But face it, she is just a piece of wood. But I am going to teach her how to speak. I'm going to teach her how to think. I am going to teach her how to move, to tell stories. And in doing so, I will bring her to life. And so he did. He taught me to do all of those things. The only problem was I could only think the things my teacher had taught me. I could not think for myself, at least not yet. Well, the three of them fell immediately in love with me. Well, clearly she should be mine. After all, had I not made her, we would not be having this conversation. Yes, that is true, but I am the one who has adorned her as you see her, full of grace and beauty. Yes, but if it were not for me, she would still just be a piece of wood. Well, they went round and round and round and round. Got kind of heated, actually, if you ask me. And this went on all through the night and into the next day. Until finally they decided that they would continue down the road and they would ask the first person they saw who should win this argument. And they all agreed that they would accept that answer. And so they packed up their goods and the four of us, we went on down the road. And the first person that we saw was an old man pulling a donkey who was pulling a cart of hay. And when he heard my companion's story, he said, I do not want to be responsible for something this important. It is for somebody much wiser than I am. But if there is one person who would be able to solve your dilemma, it would be an old man. Now I can tell you how to get there. All you have to do is to continue down the road to the city. And in the middle of the city, there will be a palace. And in the palace, there will be a garden. And in the garden, there will be the wise man. And he should be able to help you. And so we continued down the road. And sure enough, in the middle of the city, there was a palace. And in the palace, there was a garden. And in the garden, there was a wise and old man. He had a long white robe on and long white hair and a beard. His skin was creased like the folds of my dress. His skin was dry and brittle from time and age and sun. His teeth were brown and looked like they were chiseled with age. He had kind blue eyes. And my three companions, they told them their side of the story. And he listened and listened and listened. And then he turned back and watched the fish in the pond, which he had been doing when we first arrived. And we waited and waited and waited some more until finally one of my companions went, and the other two started to follow, and I was just about to do the same. After all, what else was I to do? When the old man turned around and spoke, I can see how the woodcarver should think that he should marry her. After all, had he not created her, the tailor would have nothing to make the clothes for, and the teacher would have nothing to teach. Exactly as I said, and the woodcarver came and stood beside me. But I can see how the tailor thinks that he deserves to have her. After all, he is the one who made her as you see her, so you all desire her. That is exactly true, and he came and stood beside me, the tailor did. But I can see how the teacher should think that he is entitled to her. After all, had he not taught her to teach and move and bring her to life, we would not be having this conversation. He is exactly right. And so he came and stood beside me, the teacher did. But there is one person whose voice we had not heard from yet. What do you mean? We all have told you our case. Exactly. But no one has asked the woman what she thinks. And as soon as he said that, a flood of thoughts just poured into my body, into my very soul, and for the first time, I could think for myself. I turned to my companions, my friends. I am so grateful for all you have done. I would not be here without you, literally. But I do not want, nor do I desire a husband. What I want is a companion who will give me my autonomy, my choice, yes, my voice. And so I choose as my companion this old man, if he will have me. And I reached out my hand to him, and he reached out his to mine, and as soon as our fingers touched, right before my eyes, the folds of his skin started to smooth out and became soft and supple. His hair and beard became short and brown. His teeth became white, and he wore the clothes of a young man. And standing before me was the most handsome man I had ever seen in my life. Now, granted, I had little to base it on based on my limited experience, but I did not care. And so the two of us became good companions. And eventually we did marry. And we have had many, many wonderful years together. Now, you might be wondering what sort of spell, or you might say curse, my husband was under, and by whom. And there is a story there, but that is for another day. Thank you. So that is called The Woman of the Wood, and it can be found in a children's book by that name. I'm sure there are other sources for it as well. When I was first making my set list, this story did not come into the fray at all, but as I was getting closer to tonight, I decided I do want to share this story with you. This is the one story from my own life that I'm going to throw in here, and it's a bit irreverent, so I hope you're okay with that. I spend a good part of my life, peeing. Now, this is not a bad thing. I truly believe that those of us in the frequency club, do I see any other members? Yeah, always. I do believe that those of us in the frequency club are some of the most resourceful people that I know. In fact, I have made an art out of finding the most unusual places to pee, much to the dismay of many of my traveling friends. You see, I am one of these people who would rather pee behind the gas station rather than in the gas station, if you know what I mean. I have peed in parking lots, in vacant lots, in gravel pits, and in people's driveways. I have mingled with waterfalls on the tops of mountains. I have fertilized barren plains, and I have melted snow. I pee so often, in fact, that I have developed a set of acronyms for all the types of pees, and there are three most important of those types of peas, and I will share them with you now because I don't want to deny you this information. The first one, and probably the most important one, is the PP. That is the preventative pee. So, just as I peed before I came on with you tonight, that is a preventative pee. Or it might be that you pee before you leave the house, so you don't have to pee 10 minutes down the road. Then there is the PIP, that is the pull in NP, as in you're driving down the road and you pull into a McDonald's, for instance, to pee. And then there is the POP, the pull over NP, as in, by the side of the road. Now, this is a very personal topic, and after telling this story for many, many years, inevitably, a group of people surround me afterwards, and they are excited to share their acronyms with me. And I want to share with you, I have to put my glasses on for this, but I want to share with you some of my favorite of those that other people have shared with me. There is the AP, the accidental P, and there's a lot of double entendres and doubling up of things here. There's the accidental P, which could lead to the LP, the laughing P. There is the FBP, the full bladder P, which might lead to the OPP, the overpowered P, and that is when the bladder is so full that when you do pee, it goes all over the place. Those of us who pee in the woods might know this best. There is the ESP, the extraordinary spectacular pee, or better known as the ability of parents to know exactly when the kids have to pee. There is the HP for us women in particular, for those unsavory situations. That's the hovering pee, for those unsavory situations that we all find ourselves in. There is the... This is one of my favorites. The EP, the expectant P. This is when the urgency gets greater and greater and greater, and as you approach the toilet, it feels like you're not able to hold it, and when you go, it feels so good. This from a 14-year-old boy, by the way. And then there is the PAP, the performance anxiety P, which those of you who perform, many of you I know, I'm sure are familiar with. Now, as you can tell, I am not particularly embarrassed about this topic or the act of doing it, but there was one time. When I was 27 years old, I was on a semester-long course in Kenya with the U.S.-based organization called the National Outdoor Leadership School. And the last part of our trip was sort of the cushy part of our trip, and we were sailing on these traditional dhow sailing vessels that the Muslim population on the coast of Kenya would use traditionally to trade in mangrove poles that we use for the masts of those very ships that we were on. And being in the frequency club, 20 minutes into our sail on this boat, of course, I had to pee. Now, you have to understand that this was not a particularly large boat, and there was no below deck. It was the deck, if you know what I mean. So I went to the captain and I asked him if, what is the technique for doing what I had to do? And he said, follow me. And he and his crew and all 19 of my other course mates went to the stern of the boat, to the back of the boat, and the crew lifted up a 4x4 section of the deck and showed me what is essentially below deck. It was the hull of the boat. And then he handed me a metal pail. I said, you want me to go in there? He said, yeah, it's okay. I said, no, that's okay. I'll wait. He goes, no, it's not good to wait. I have a cloth. I'll cover up the hole. Well, there were 25 people waiting to see what I would do. And after all, this was an outdoor adventure course. And so I hopped into the hull of the boat. He covered it up. I straddled that metal pail, and let me tell you, my friends, my pee hit that pail like a hard rain on a tin roof. It was quite an auditory extravaganza, I must say. But the problem was that this thing that I mentioned earlier, the PAP, the performance anxiety pee, had taken place while I was trying to pee, knowing that 25 people were above deck listening. And so I didn't empty my bladder the whole way. And so 20 minutes later, I had to pee. And so I went back to the captain and I asked him if there was any other way to do what I needed to do. And he told me that there was, and that was to crawl over the edge of the boat and hang from a rope that was hung horizontally alongside the boat and pee in the water while the boat was moving with my clothes on. Easy, right? The only problem is that even under sail, the boat was moving along so quickly and the swish of the water was so loud that I couldn't tell whether I was peeing or not. A very unsatisfactory and satisfying experience, I must say. But the good thing is that I didn't know it at the time, but I was developing this set of acronyms, and now I had two more, the HP, the hanging P, and the BP, the bucket P. Now, if the power of suggestion has been too much for you as I've been telling you this tale, I'm sure that whoever lives with you, or if you don't, I'm sure yourself would appreciate using the TP method, the toilet pee method. But if I ever see any of you at a storytelling event and the line to the bathroom is too long, you can find me out back by the dumpster. May the peace be with you.
Oh, my goodness.
And I actually forgot to grab it, so I'm going to grab something to show you real quick. So this, I'm hoping you can see this, is actually a model of the Dow sailing vessels that I was referring to with a lot of dust in it. Can you all see it?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is a traditional Dow sailing boat, and this is a model I brought back from Kenya. Anyway.
Oh, very nice.
All right. Let's see what's next on the list. So, Eva, I think I have time. Time went quickly. So I have, 15 minutes or so? No.
It is 8:00 our time, and I think we started a little bit late. So how long is the last story?
How much what?
How long is the last story?
The last story. I will tell a short story. How's that?
Yeah, we'll just check with the audience if hey, I'm okay with it.
Okay,
I think
good.
the audience says thumbs up. Hey,
thumbs up. Okay, good.
We are good.
All right, excellent. We got a wiggle thumb from Bruce. I'm not sure what that means, Bruce. Excellent. Okay, this is a story that I learned from Dan Kedding many years ago at an NSN conference, actually, and it's a wonderful little story. So I will end with this. In old Japan, there lived an old man. He was a wanderer, a traveler, a storyteller. And he was traveling through the countryside. And as he was traveling, he realized that it had been several days since he had a full meal to eat and since he had a comfortable place to sleep for the night. And it was known in Japan at that time that if you were to come across a dojo and knock on their door and be willing to spar with one of their students, you would be able to get a place for a night and something to eat. And so when the old man, he saw one of those dojos, a place where they learned the art of the sword, he knocked on the door. And somebody opened it up, and the old man, he said, "I want to spar with your master." Good sir, I'm sure that you will be very excited to spar with one of our first-year students. They are really quite good. They are almost at the end of their first year. I want to spar with your master. Good sir, I do not mean to insult you. Perhaps you would like to spar with one of our second-year students. I want to spar with your master. Good sir, our third-year students, they are very good, almost at the end of their training. I am sure that you will be quite satisfied to spar with one of them. But the old man insisted. And so the word spread throughout the dojo that there was somebody who insisted on sparring with the master. And all of the students and teachers, they lined the great hall, waiting for the master to come out. The traveler, the old man, he stood in the middle of the hall waiting. And finally the door in the back of the room opened, and the samurai came out, the master, with all of his regalia and his swords in sheaths by his side, and he walked right up to the old man. "I understand you want to spar with me. Very well. Let us begin." And he drew his sword out of his sheath. He raised it above his hand, and the storyteller started. Once there was a man that went to a pond, but instead of his reflection, he saw the face of a beautiful woman, and he reached out to touch her face, but his hands started going deeper and deeper into the water until he found himself into a great forest, and there were big trees and a big aisle that seemed to part their ways as she went. And at the end of the trees, there was a man sitting on a throne. It was her husband. And the samurai, with his sword above his head, put the sword back in his sheath. "You have won the match." The students couldn't believe it. "What do you mean he won the match? He didn't even have a weapon. He could have killed you. Don't you know, haven't I told you that the most important thing is to always be present? With this story, this man took me to faraway places. He could have killed me in an instant. He won the match." And the samurai bowed one more time, and he left the great hall.
Yes.
So I always love to hear which stories touch people. What were the favorite ones? So if anyone cares to share.
At this point in time, everybody can switch to the gallery view.
Yes, and open your mics.
And unmute, and feel free to offer your thanks and ask your questions. And
anyone have any
back
questions?
to our storyteller.
Okay, I have a question.
Okay, good.
Rona,
yes.
Right now I'm in Florida and I live in an independent living home. And I am a storyteller, of course. And I first learned of you from your book when I read the story of the cricket. And I loved it, the cricket in the busy town.
Yes.
And I loved your telling tonight. I loved the way you handled everything. And I just wanted to let you know I'm the one who came the furthest. away to come and hear you when I saw your name.
Oh, thank you so much. That's great. I'm so glad that you have that book. Yeah. So the book is called Spinning Tales, Weaving Hope, Stories, Storytelling, and Activities for Peace, Justice, and the Environment. And and that's the book that the Four Wise People is in as well.
So, Rona, since you transported us all to another place and took our focus away, I think you've won the match.
Very good.
But I also wanted to add that I thought that the first and the third stories were golem stories in a way.
Which story?
The Indian one, and then the one about the other three travelers. They're a little bit like golem stories without the golem running amok, because you're creating, well, I guess the tiger does run amok. You're creating something out of
interesting.
Nothing, which is like the golem.
That is so interesting. I never made that connection
Never
before.
made it either.
Yeah, interesting.
I was waiting for the woman in the third story to eat the three guys that made her.
That's a different story, Bruce. But yeah, that's great. I love that.
Anybody else? I mean, this has been such a wonderful evening of stories. Feel free to say what you have to say before I start talking.
Well, I had a great time. Thank you, everyone, for coming out.
Yes.
I just went and did my donation. That's what I was doing there for a moment, to make sure that everyone donated for the Zoom performance.
I related to that so much.
Yes.
Now at this age.
That's wonderful. So it's difficult to thank you, Joanna, for making a donation, which brings me to the say that these things are not free. We do pay our storytellers. So if you enjoyed our evening tonight, feel free to make a donation here at the SeattleStorytellers.org. That's our website, and that's you go to that site and you'll see a donation jar, our beautiful purple hat. Now, you asked Rona about which of the stories were a favorite, and they were all so excellent that it's difficult to choose. Of course, they're just so well crafted and well told that it's hard. But I do lean toward women who have their own mind. Enjoyed that very much.
Yeah, thank you.
And thanks for not being embarrassed to tell us the peace story, because many of us can relate.
There's always people who can relate to that story.
Yeah, I several years ago, I have many people don't know, but I have a muscle illness that I have been recovering from for a long time. But at one point, I had very little control. And so when I was strong enough to go out, I always had to know where to pee, where the bathroom was. And there were times, Rona, that I peed in the wild of Seattle public parks.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you. Yes, it is a skill.
Yes, it is. Hello, Lilium. I didn't notice you earlier. I'm glad you're here. Anyone else? Oh, Anne, you turn on your mic.
Thank you for reminding me, Eva. I really liked the story of the fellow who slept under the tree and had this amazing dream. But I liked it, not only for itself, but the main character, Yael. We have a storyteller here in Seattle who's also an artist, a painter, and her name is Yael, and originally from Israel. And so I just kept picturing her.
Actually, she registered for the program, but she didn't come.
She
Cool. Sent the recording.
She texted on the recording.
Yeah.
She would like to be hearing about herself.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Well, thank you for for sharing that.
So, anyone else? Yes, Ellen.
So I have maybe another acronym for you, Rona.
Oh, good.
Sure, you can. In college, two of my girlfriends and I, we were into wearing skirts and hiking boots. And we perfected the art of peeing against a tree and no one noticing you were doing a thing because you had your skirt around you.
Ah.
And it was
Were
great.
you like hugging the tree?
No, you had your backside up to the tree, the skirt out, and you just looked like you were relaxing against the tree.
Nice.
And it was great because then the pee ran down the tree bark and not down your leg or into your boots. So maybe it's POT, pee on tree.
There you go. POT. I love it. I love
Judith
it.
is looking incredulous.
What?
Judith is looking incredulous. I think that's very, very.
There is, like I said, there's definitely talent involved, especially with that one. I will have to add that. Thank you. Pee on tree.
Yeah. And for those of you who are not on camera, if you have something to share, feel free to unmute your mic because I can't see you. Okay. All right. Anyone else? Okay. Well, if not, I will remind you once again to please donate to the SeattleStorytellers.org, to SeattleStorytellers.org, so that we can keep these programs coming to you. As you know, everything is getting more expensive, so we need your support. And I'm going to let Rona go to bed now. She is on the East Coast.
Yes, I am too.
and
Bruce,
Linda in
also.
Florida to get to bed. And Bruce, thank you so much, Rona, for bringing us such a wonderful collection of stories. And as I said, I love your storytelling, and you were well worth waiting for this evening of stories.
Thank you. You know, one thing I will just quickly say is that when J.J. Pinkerton created Tellabration, the point was not just to spread storytelling, but specifically to spread storytelling to adults. So thanks everybody for coming out and continuing to support that goal of his. And while some Tellabrations now, like in Connecticut, go into schools and libraries and the such for kids, the initial motivation for him, as my understanding, is that he wanted to let people know that storytelling wasn't just for kids, it was for adults also. Yeah. Absolutely. But Eva, thank you so much for having me. It was really fun.
Thank you. It was wonderful. Thank you, Rona. Thank you.
Everybody give another hand for Rona,
so
our
much.
wonderful storyteller. Thank you. Thank you.
Before you rush off,